Hey, welcome to the weekly walk on. As always, I am Adam, your host, and we are live again on the College Sports Crew YouTube channel. So, for those of you that listen to the audio only, just know that this one won't be quite as edited as normal, and it is live. So, anybody that listens to the audio on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, um, Amazon Music through Alexa, you can check out this episode and 2 episodes ago on the College Sports Crew YouTube channel. So this episode is going to be a mailbag. The first time I've done an episode like this lets listeners get to know me a little bit more than what they have in the past. And I sent out on social media asking for questions. I got about 10 questions back, and I will go through and ask those. If anybody has questions as we go, you are more than welcome to ask those questions, and I will answer them live too when I get to them and get through. And then at the end of the episode, I have a special guest coming on to ask me the weekly wildcard questions that I've never been on this side of it. So probably going to trip me up a little bit. It's one of my good friends, and I've given him some difficult ones when he's been on the show in the past. So looking forward to that. But we'll go ahead and get started. The first question I got was from @cmartin2288 on Twitter. He's on the YouTube channel, goes by Snacks on a couple different of his shows. But his question is, how important is the relationship between the players and the strength and conditioning coach in reference to the team's overall toughness and physicality on the field? And that question, actually, he's an LSU fan. So that question comes from LSU's strength and conditioning coach going to Texas A&M and not being there anymore. Tommy Moffitt. He was a big Tommy Moffitt fan. And I don't know the guy, but everything I have heard, Tommy Moffitt is one of the best, one of the toughest. You ask any former LSU player what they got from Tommy Moffitt, how much they liked him. That was a huge thing for the LSU players when he was no longer on the former players, when he was no longer a staff. So Snacks, I will say this, to me, your strength and conditioning coach is with the team more than anybody else outside of, or strength and conditioning staff, the whole staff, outside of probably the medical team, your athletic trainers, because they're with them for rehab. So they're there for all the conditioning. They're there for all the weightlifting. They are there for so much else. And they're there all the time, they're there for every single practice. And that's something with NCAA rules. The coaches aren't always allowed to be at the off-season workouts. They aren't always allowed to be at the summer conditionings, the weight room sessions, and all of that. But the strength coaches can be at everything. And obviously, the toughness of a team starts from the head down with the head coach. But I really think the toughness comes from, players sometimes don't always buy into what they see on the practice field, and it's here or there. What they see in the weight room, from my experience, is what they really buy into and what they are going to really see, because they see the strength and conditioning staff. They see those coaches that are there at 6 a.m. every day, that are leaving at 6 p.m. every day. And they're not doing any game planning. They are making sure you're getting your supplements at the hotel for games. They're going around doing the team checks. They're out on the practice field helping with rehab. Once the med staff's done, they're trying to get them, the players, back in shape to help rehab those injuries, get them stronger again so they can get back on the field. And they're in the trenches with the players more than anybody else, in my opinion. So the toughness starts at the top with the head coach and the tone that coach sends. But it can be amplified so much by a strength staff that is always present and is always intense. And those staffs that bring their intensity every single day, man, they are fun to play for. Coach Hill at Kentucky, he's a deputy AD there now. He was on an episode, season 1, I think. Great episode. But he brought that intensity, but he also understood sometimes you had to kind of love the players up a little bit. You had to let them know that you do care, because the coaches just want on field performance. The strength coaches kind of understood. They would play the good cop every once in a while when your actual position coaches were playing the bad cop. And they also really try to set the tone for creating people, not just for what they can do on the field, but mentally making them tougher for their career down the road. And I had a great episode. It was last season. Tristan, who was on UCF's undefeated team, and now he's a strength coach, really talking about, he has some Olympic sports, really talking about how he prepares them mentally to not only be great on the field, but how to overcome adversity going forward. So it's a lot of that mental toughness that the strength coaches will get after with them. Not just the physical toughness, but the strength coaches. So Snacks, great question. I appreciate that one. College roommate saw my Instagram story, so he texted me. Multiple questions here. Thank you, Saul. Appreciate that. They're all great questions. What advice would you give to current seniors in high school who are considering walking on at their college? That's a little bit of a loaded question now, because walk-ons are kind of going away. They don't have limits on the amount of scholarships you can give at the FBS level now for football. Other sports is probably a little bit different. So my answer is going to be kind of generic for all sports. There might still be walk-ons, but they limited that number at FBS to 105. So you can't have the 160 guys anymore and have 75 walk-ons. So you don't really have the preferred walk-ons or the unrecruited. You know, Nebraska used to bring in 100 extra guys just because they were all guys from the state of Nebraska that grew up wanting to play there. And that walk-on program has kind of gone away because of this. And or if it hasn't, it's going to be going away because of the limit on roster size, and everybody can have a scholarship now. So, you know, take this for one, kind of what my thinking was, but for what walk-ons can be at any level and any sport as well. I think first and foremost, if you're unrecruited, make sure it's the right fit. Make sure it is the right fit and you're going to be happy there, not just the athletics playing side, not just the sports side. Make sure it's a place that you want to go. You can be happy living in that city. You can be happy on that campus, going to class. They have the right major, or if you're undecided, they have that right direction that you want to go or you think you want to go. You can always change later. But they have that right direction that you think you want to go to be able to have set you up for that future career. Because out of all the sports the NCAA sponsors, I think they're up to 91 or 92 sports now. There's only a handful of sports that you will go pro. Football, both basketballs, baseball. There's some pro volleyball leagues. There's hockey. There's not a whole lot of other things that you're going to go pro in. Track and field, they have pro circuits. And if you don't get the endorsements, you're going to have some sort of side gig. Your other sports, the NCAA sponsors, you're 99% of them, especially if you're a walk-on, even more so if you're an unrecruited walk-on, you're going to be finding a job somewhere else that's not playing sports in your future. And if you are fortunate enough to get some sort of job, you're going to have endorsements or some other side of income as well. So I think the most important thing for a walk-on is finding that right fit for everything, knowing you are going to live there the next 4 to 6 years, depending on how long it takes you to get your degree, if you get a master's degree and all of that. Again, Saul's second question was, what was the biggest challenges being a walk-on as an SEC athlete? I always tell people that the hardest part for that was having 3 head coaches in 5 years. I had walked on with Hal Mummy. I was an unrecruited walk-on. They had a JV team for anybody that wanted to walk on. We played Division II, Division III schools and a couple prep schools around the area. It counted as a year of eligibility because we were playing, and then I got redshirted my sophomore year. But I had to prove myself, and they just kind of threw guys on that team that let's see if they stick around, and let's see if they end up being good enough, and we'll bring them up to the real team eventually. And Coach Mummy resigned, was let go, recruiting violations. Coach Morris was hired. They did away with that team, but they kept me around with the real team. It was an all-new staff. So I had to prove myself again that I could do it. So 2 more years of proving myself, working my way up. Scholarship players were always going to get the benefit of the doubt if anything was close. And then Coach Morris takes a job at Baylor. Coach Brooks comes in, Rich Brooks, and I had to prove myself all again. And Coach Morris's staff really liked rewarding guys that did things the right way, that didn't get in trouble, and they wanted to reward those walk-on guys. I truly think I would have had a scholarship my 5th year if Coach Morris's staff would have stayed. If not my fourth, I wasn't sure, but I couldn't think of any guys in the 2 years before me that were 5th-year players that weren't on scholarship because they did reward players. So, Saul, good question. That was my biggest challenge, was just as a walk-on, constantly proving myself with 3 different head coaches. And then, Saul, your last question, what was the biggest takeaway from your college experience? How did it prepare you for life after competitive sports? I've said this many times before. Football is the ultimate team-building sport. If you have one player out of 11 on the field break down, that play or that defensive play is not going to be successful. So it is the ultimate team-building sport. You learn how to overcome adversity. You learn how to persevere. You learn how to be a good teammate. You learn so many life lessons that follow you into your professional career that are going to be helpful, that are going to help you be successful people in society later in life, be a successful job, advance in your career, and all of that. So I think any athlete will be able to tell you the majority of those things. I don't have the experience past the high school level on any other sport, but those 6 a.m. workouts, all those lifting, all those runs that you didn't think you could do anymore, and the coaching staff, strength and conditioning staff, I just talked about how they pushed limits mentally, made you mentally stronger, pushed you past what you thought you could do. And that prepares you for anything that can be thrown at you in life. So I think that is probably the best thing I got out of that. Is every time I wanted to quit, I knew I couldn't, or I wasn't going to reach my goal. And that's kind of been my mindset in my career. Cortland, he was on an episode a couple weeks ago. He's been on multiple episodes. He was a former roommate as well. Saw my story on Instagram as well. And he said, what was your former teammate John Summerall like as a teammate, as a player? And we were both at Tulane at the same time. People would ask me at Tulane once they found out I played for him, is this how he's always like? And I always said, what you're seeing is what you get. At least I didn't have a much of a relationship with him from the last time I played until he got to Tulane. And what I saw was pretty much the exact same person, the competitiveness, the straight shooter, the just all around ball player, wanting to play ball, competitive guy. I will say, because he was getting interviewed, had a microphone in his face every day, doing press conferences, he was a little bit more talkative. I was stayed to myself a lot in college. I was quieter, and I don't want to say he was quiet, but he kind of stayed to his small group of people, and we crossed paths some. We would hang out some. We were in the same position room for a couple years under Coach Morris's staff. And then when Coach Brooks' staff got there, different defense, we weren't in the same room anymore. But that competitive fire is the exact same it's always been. So, Cortland, great question. I appreciate that. Reed Harrison saw my Instagram story, shot me a text. I hired him at Tulane when I was still in athletics. We worked together. His question is, what was the most memorable game you played in while at UK? I only played in a handful of games, so I'll just say my two most memorable moments in a positive way. They both involved Indiana, ironically. The very first game I ever dressed for was I think it was the 2001 Indiana game at home. And we won the game. We had a rainstorm, lightning delay during pregame warmups. We had another one at some point in the first half. I want to say it was a 7 p.m. kickoff. I don't think I got out of the locker room until after 1 o'clock. I just remember after the game, there was nowhere to go get dinner. My folks were in town, and we were supposed to go get dinner somewhere, and everywhere was closed. And I constantly wanted fresh socks because we were just getting stormed on. We'd go out, and the ground was soaking wet. So I just wanted new socks. Every time we went to the locker room, halftime, both rain delays. The final time I didn't get them because they were out of socks because everybody was asking for them. So that, my first experience getting that, running out into the stadium, the college experience of running onto the field. And then my second one, the first time I ever traveled and the first game I ever played in was at Indiana. Close game. It was 2003, I believe. Maybe the first game I played in was 2002 because we went every other year with Indiana. 2003, traveled to Indiana's first time traveling to an away game. Got in the game on kickoff. It was a close game back and forth. I think they were winning at halftime, and we ended up dominating the second half, won by 17, 20 points, and I got in on a kickoff late. And first college game I ever got in. It was close to the tackle, but my issues were I wasn't fast enough. That's why I didn't get much playing time. So that wasn't fast enough to get down there in time to get to the tackle, but I was close to it, and I finally felt like I was part of the team again, because there's a little bit of difference when you're not playing and you're practicing, you're not traveling and you're practicing. So another question is from @More at College Football. And his question, More College Football, his handle is more_CFB on Twitter. What stadiums have I been to, and what are some that are on my bucket list? I think I got all the stadiums I've been to. I've been to games at Ohio State, Bowling Green, Kent State, Akron, Wittenberg, which is a Division III school in Ohio, Saginaw Valley State, Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU. I went to the Rose Bowl. I've been to Camping World Stadium, whatever it's called, because they had the Citrus Bowl and the Cure Bowl. So I've been to both the Citrus Bowl and Cure Bowl, the Belk Bowl, Penn State, Wisconsin, Michigan, Michigan State, South Carolina, Indiana, Texas, the Peach Bowl. A few that I think that's all I've been to. I've thought about this a couple times. The few that I have been to, but not for games, I've been at Texas A&M been inside the stadium when I went for a basketball game, and I knew David Taylor, that he was on an episode earlier last season talking about, he worked at LSU and Texas A&M, talking about managing 100,000 seat stadiums. And he would let me into the stadium, kind of gave me a tour of it in January after going to the Kentucky Texas A&M basketball game. Been to Grand Valley State Stadium, Division II school. There's a couple others I've been to. Notre Dame's I've been to, walked around. Is coming back from a Cubs game growing up in Ohio, and we stopped and went to the College Football Hall of Fame when it was still in South Bend, and also walked to Notre Dame's campus and went around their stadium. So the three that I would like to attend, I really want to go to Virginia Tech. Would love to be there for Enter Sandman in a top 25, top 15 matchup, whatever. So hopefully James Franklin gets them rolling again quick, and I can get to a game there in the next 3 or 4 years. BYU, just such a beautiful setting. Would love that. And then Army, Navy, not really a stadium, but a game. Would love that as well. And as somebody just pointed out to me on text, I've been to UCF. I don't know how I forgot that. I had that one in my head as I was brainstorming. So yeah, I know I missed a few. I had them in my mind as I was brainstorming yesterday, driving home after I saw the question. And then when I went to put pen to paper, I I know I left a few out. And Army Navy, that's another one I would like to go to. I got two more questions that I just get asked all the time, and then I'm going to bring in my special guest for the weekly wildcard segments. One question, when people found out I played at Kentucky, this was an older question, between maybe 2006 to 2012-ish, was, did you play with that fat quarterback, and was he really that big and that quick? And the Jared Lorenzen, rest his soul, passed away a few years ago from some health complications. Yep, I played with him. He was a year ahead of me, year older than me. Had an absolute cannon of an arm. He was that quick, surprisingly fast in straight line for how big he was. But it's just unbelievable how quick his feet were. He was, I think, 6'2", 6'3", maybe 6'4". I think the lowest he ever was 285. He was up to 325 at some times during his career there. He could dunk a basketball. The dude was freakish athlete, and the things he could do, how quick his feet were mind-blowing to watch. A question I get frequently now that I live in New Orleans, or amongst a bunch of LSU fans, was, were you on the team during the Bluegrass Miracle? That makes me want to puke. Yes, I was on the team during that. I was not on the field. That was 2001, and I wasn't even dressing for games then, I don't think. Definitely didn't play in any games. My first game was 2003 that I played in. Yes, I was on the team. That was outside of some senior days and a few other things involving football. That was the worst feeling I've ever had when it comes to football, especially game involved. The worst times ever were senior year, my last high school football game, not knowing if I would ever play college football again, and then obviously my last game at UK, knowing I was never going to play again because I had no chance to go pro. But yes, and the only response I really have to that when they laugh is, at least Kentucky got them in 2007 when LSU was number one and came to Lexington and got upset. So that's negative experience right there. That's the mailbag that I have. I appreciate everybody that has sent in questions to me. And first time doing this, thought I would give it a try. Now the real part comes in as I have a friend coming on, special guest, Matt Overland here, who has been on the podcast many times, has answered the weekly wildcard questions many times, and now I have to answer his weekly wildcard question. So, Matt, fire away. What do you have?
All right. Thanks for having me on, man. This is cool. I'm glad I get to retaliate here a little bit. All right, first one. Current Division I head coach that would make the greatest Avenger in a Marvel movie, and what would his superpower be?
Man, I'm going to go with, from stories I've heard from you and from what I've seen when they came to Tulane, I'm going to go with Scott Frost. That guy is still in incredible shape from the last time I saw him. I've heard stories from you that he was constantly running stadium steps at UCF when you were associate AD for game management there, whatever your title was. You oversaw the football games and dealt with him on a regular basis. The dude still looks like he's in playing shape at, I don't know what he is. He's probably upper 40s. What
53.
He's 53, older than I thought. Wow. That's right.
Yeah.
He was the quarterback for that 97 national championship team, right?
Yeah.
So older than us. Yeah, I'm going Scott Frost, 53. He still looks like he's in playing shape, and his superpower would be anti-aging.
So, fun fact about Scott, not only did he run stadiums, he ran scout team quarterback at UCF. Still, when we played, I think it was when we played the service academies. he would run option quarterback. At that time, he was mid-40s, something along those lines. So, yeah, phenomenal. Mine's Lane Kiffin, and his superpower would be teleportation. His ability to move wherever he wants, whenever he wants. Second one, take us back to 99, 2000, kind of that time frame. A school not named Kentucky or Ohio State. Where would you have wanted to play college football?
So I got recruited by Ohio. For those of you that don't know, and some of these schools have moved to Division II since 99, 98, 99, 2000. When I was being recruited. I graduated high school in 2000, and the majority of the Division III schools in Ohio recruited me to play football and or baseball. And I wanted to go somewhere. I'm a behind the scenes guy. That's why I worked in events and facility management and college athletics, and not marketing, not development, anything like that. I didn't want to go to a campus that had 2,500 students, 1,900 students, whatever. I wanted to go to a larger campus and blend in. The MAC schools sniffed around me a little bit, but I think it was more – I went to games on recruiting visits more. They invited my teammate, and bring Adam too, I think, to entice them, knowing that we were friends, and never got serious interest from them. Mount Union, I was very interested in. If anybody that knows Division III football, they are an absolute monster in Mount Union. And that was towards the beginning. Their ball really got rolling in the early to mid 90s. And went through like 2015 to where they were in the national championship all the time. And Larry Karras' son has since gone. He's assistant coach at a MAC school now. But he has since gone, and they're still very, very good, but they're not in the national championship game every year like they were. So that was an interest, but I also knew they had like 200 guys on their team every year. Anybody that wanted to play there, they took, because it helped up enrollment. Ohio Wesleyan and Dayton were the other two schools I was very interested in. Had a great recruiting visit at Dayton, which is another stadium I've been to, 4 games and 4 just in the stadium. Had a great recruiting visit there, but they ended up bringing in a couple other players from that I didn't think were nearly as good. They brought in a bunch of recruits from teams that we used to just curb stomp in high school, and players I was like, how are these guys better than me? But that didn't work out that way. Ohio Wesleyan was very interested. It just came down to, and I talked about this earlier, when you're going to go to school, whether you walk on, scholarship, anything, make sure it's the right fit. And it was 45 minutes from where I grew up. It was, I forget what Ohio Wesleyan student enrollment is, but it's definitely under 3,000. It felt like a high school you go stay the night at. And so that's kind of how I ended up on Kentucky. It was 3 hours away from where I grew up. I wanted to be further enough away that I wouldn't be driving home all the time. It wasn't something that, I needed that distance, and I also wanted a larger college. So I wanted to blend into the crowd because I wasn't 100% sure if football was going to work out for me.
What about, so that was practical. What about like, if you're dreaming about like a school that you would have wanted to get, like some big time school, like where would you, if you could have had a choice to maybe walk on even somewhere else around the country, anything that would have been a dream?
Ohio State, obviously growing up in Ohio, but you said not Ohio State and Florida State. Those teams in the 90s were, I was by no means a Florida State fan, but when they were playing, I wanted to watch them. Yeah. There was so much talent and so much speed on the field when they played, and they always had 2 stud defensive ends. They would get a lead, they'd get up 14, 17, 3, nothing, whatever. And you'd see those DNs as they got the lead and were starting to force teams to pass, just slowly widen out, and then just made that speed rush around the edge a little bit easier for them, and just meet in the pocket. Yeah. Meet at the quarterback.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last one, most important one. Who is your favorite Michigan football player of all time?
Well, every single Michigan player is going to be way lower than every other player, college football player ever, with the exception of Tennessee and Louisville. So, I mean, this is like picking up the best smelling turd here. But I will say I'm going to go Desmond Howard because he grew up in Ohio. He's an Ohio guy. People want to call him Michigan man, but he's an Ohio guy from Cleveland. And I've shaken his hand and gotten a picture with him, and you haven't. So I got that one over on you.
Ooh, I've shaken his hand multiple times, twice. I don't think I got a picture, but I have shaken his hand when UCF hosted game day in 2018, in November 2018. I got to meet him. So good answer. I thought you might go Charles Woodson.
Another guy from Ohio.
Yeah, he dominated you guys too. Ohio State a little too much though. That probably stung a little bit, but all right, well done.
Matt, I appreciate you coming on. You want to push your Twitter out?
Yeah, at Oberlin73 on social. We're still plugging away at this ministry thing, hoping to get this thing off and running here in the next 6 to 8 weeks. So if you want any more information, it's all there on my Twitter.
Tell folks what your title is too, because we're a football show, so I have football related people on. So tell them what your title is, so they don't think it's just some Michigan schlub.
Yeah, Director of Global Football Ministry with Athletes in Action. My family and I are kind of relaunching and revamping the football ministry with AIA. So we're in that season of life and hoping to get that thing started here pretty soon.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. I know you're busy and you got stuff you got to do, so you can go ahead and jump off here, or you can stay around. It's up to you.
All right, man. Appreciate you.
All right. Thank you.
All right. See ya.
All right. Again, I appreciate Matt for coming on, and he's already got one of these shirts that all guests get. I'm tardy on sending a lot of this year's shirts out, so you will get a shirt. Probably do that later today since I'm off work today, and get all that out this weekend. So if you haven't received a shirt yet, and I owe you one, be looking for it soon. Thank you for everybody that sent questions. Didn't know if I would get any. Didn't know how this would work out. I've never done anything like this before, but I do get questions sometimes on social media, which I absolutely love. We get questions during our other shows when I'm on Sweet Tea in the SEC. People are able to comment live here. If anybody wants to comment now, I'm more than happy to answer your questions. And I get questions all the time when people find out, I played at Kentucky or different things. So just wanted to let people learn a little bit more about me and my experiences. Like I've said, I worked in college athletics for 17 years. After grad school, or in grad school as well, played at Kentucky for 5 years. I was an unrecruited walk-on, played on a JV team my first year, got redshirted my second year, and then got into a handful of games the next 3 years, traveling some, and it was an amazing experience. I can't thank the staffs enough for keeping me around, and my teammates for just being great teammates through that whole experience. And it truly is, it becomes a brotherhood. And I can't speak to anything military, but talking to people that are military, I can't think of something else that is similar, because we don't go through anything as difficult in life as what military personnel go through. But we bond over similar things with all those workouts, being pushed till you want to quit, putting everything on the line that you have, not life or death, but all your energy and efforts on the line for a common cause. And so it's a bond being on a football team like nothing else I've ever experienced. And that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, was one, to share those experiences as a player, and then two, also share the experiences of what it takes to make a college football game run, because there are so many things that happen outside the lines leading up to a season months in advance for a college football season to even happen. So please rate, like, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to it, whether it's Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or Amazon Music and Alexa. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are watching on there. And our Twitter for the YouTube is @collegesports. Make sure I have that correct, since I don't run that handle. It is, I'm sorry, the YouTube channel's Twitter is @collegecrew. So start following @collegecrew. If it's something, we got multiple great shows on there, all relating to college football. And then there's going to be some other sports coming here soon, college baseball, and some other shows. There's a veteran show on there. And follow me, college football guy, or I'm sorry, @CFB guy on Twitter, @CFB guy1 on Instagram. I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful Monday evening watching this championship game. I'm very excited about this game. I've kind of been ho-hum going into them the last few years. I think this is going to be such a great game. And for those of you that do follow me on Instagram and saw Hookah's picks for the semifinal games, he will make his picks tomorrow for the national championship game. And you might hear him in the background whining right now. He's upset because he's not on the show. He wants to be on the show, but he's going to have to wait to make his picks until tomorrow. So have a great weekend. Enjoy the game Monday night. And remember, there's nothing like Saturdays in the fall.